So last time I asked you guys, which method would you use for solving this quadratic equation? And among the 9,500 people who voted, about 68% of you guys said the quadratic formula. Only 32%, which is less than 1/3, of you guys said the completing a square method. In this video, I just want to speak up for the completing a square method because it's easier, especially for this one. The reason is because when we have the coefficient of x squared is 1 and the coefficient of x is an even number, I strongly believe that completing a square method is easier. So let me demonstrate the quadratic formula first though. Let's see how it is, and then later on we'll do the completing a square. Have a look. So first, you have to remember the quadratic formula. So that takes some time, that takes some work, alright? So the idea is that if you have ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0, then the quadratic formula says x is equal to negative b plus or minus square root of b squared minus 4 times a times c all over 2a. So in this case here, a is 1, b is 10, and c is negative 5. Then we're going to just plug in. So we get negative 10 plus or minus square root. Here we have 10 squared minus 4, a and c is 1 and negative 5. And all these are in the square root. And all divided by 2 times a is 1. Whew, that's a pretty big expression. Yeah. Okay, continue. Here we have negative 10 plus or minus square root. And for this one right here, let's just do it on the side. First, 10 squared minus 4 times 1 times negative 5. That is 10 times 10, which is 100. And then negative times negative, we get positive. 4 times 1 is 4, times 5 is 20. So all in all, we get 120. That goes on the inside of the square root. And over 2 times 1, which is 2. Now notice, square root of 120 can actually be simplified. In that case, we'll just have to do it. We have to think about two numbers, they multiply to 120, and one of the numbers has to be a perfect square, but do not use 1, because 1 does not reduce anything. So can we use 10 and 12? No. Can we use 2 and 60? No. But we can use 4 and 30. And both of them are inside of the square root. And square root of 30 cannot be further simplified, so that's it. This right here is just 2, and we multiply with square root of 30. So this is negative 10 plus or minus 2 square root of 30 all over 2. But we can write it like this, over 2 here and over 2 here. That way we can reduce the fraction here and here. We get negative 5 plus or minus, this and that cancel, right? It's 1 and 5, negative 5, and then square root of 30. And that will be the final answer. So this is how you will do it if you use the quadratic formula. Now, let's compare this with the completing a square method. Here, for the completing a square, we will have to know the following steps. Step 1, know what you want to begin with. And this is not just math, this is also in real life. You always need to know what you want before you start doing anything, right? Okay, what we want is 1 x squared plus some number b times x. This thing on one side. If b is even, then completing a square method is actually better in my opinion. So right here, let me just add 5 to both sides and we will get x squared plus 10x and leave a space here and we get 5 right here. So we got what we wanted. Now, next we are going to add what I call the magic number, because this number is going to be so magical. After we add it to both sides, the left hand side will become factorable. And better yet, you will get a perfect square. Because originally this right here was not factorable. So this is really magical. Have a look. What we are going to do is, we are going to look at the b value and take half of it, and then square that. So this is the number that we have to work out first, and we are going to add it to both sides. So our case here, b is positive 10. Let's go ahead and work that out. We take 1/2 times 10 and then square that. Half of 10 is 5. Square that is 25. So I will just have to add 25 to both sides. Now on the left hand side, have a look. If you factor it, you will get x plus 5 times x plus 5. And that's of course x plus 5 squared. And on the right hand side, 5 plus 25 is 30. Now finally, all you have to do is solve a perfect square equation, meaning you have something like this equals a number, an expression on the inside, right? So to do this, all we have to do is take the square roots on both sides, cancel. We have x plus 5, and have a look at the square root. We have the square root of 30, which cannot be simplified. And I can just subtract 5 from both sides, so we get x equals -5 plus or minus square root of 30, and then we're done. Yeah, it takes 1, 2, 3 steps. That's all. And of course, I just wrote down the notes right here for you guys. Yeah, so definitely give completing a square method a try. Now here's the bonus part. Why are we adding this to both sides? Why is this the formula, and why is this called the completing a square method? Let's have a look. Starting right here, x squared plus 10x. We are going to interpret this expression geometrically. X squared, look at this. This length being x, and then duplicate that right here, and then we can create a square. And the area of this is x times x, which is x to the second power, and we call this x squared. Literally, because we are trying to find the area of this square. Now, for the 10x, maybe I can just draw like 10 right here, and then create a rectangle. That's 10x. But in fact, we don't want to do that. Because otherwise we really don't have any. In fact, we don't want to do that because if you put a 10 right here, you cannot make it into a triangle. In fact, we don't want to do that because if you put a 10 right here, you cannot create a square later on. Instead, we are going to cut this in half. So I will just put 5 right here. Now I will put on another 5 right here. Why? Because now if I draw the picture like this rectangle has the area what? 5 times x, that's 5x. So is this 5x. Together, we still have 10x. Now, if you look at this picture here, doesn't it look like something's missing? Yes, indeed, this little corner, right? How big is this little corner? Well, 5 times 5, that's 25. And this is precisely what we got earlier. We took half of this and then squared that. That's how we end up with the 5 squared. Just like this. So that's why once we add a 25 to it, we have finished this whole picture for the square. And if you factor it, you get precisely x plus 5 times x plus 5. That's that. Cool, huh?